The Indianapolis Colts had a busy start to NFL free agency by getting extensions done with many of their key free agents. So, which players will be staying in Indy for years to come? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and as always, I'm joined here by my fellow writer, analyst, and co-host of the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, Drake Wally. Drake, wasn't expecting too much noise from the Colts as far as outside free agents are concerned, but boy, four big deals with guys that were on the team last year, guys that are going to make the Colts better for years to come. And a lot of this is what the Colts consider free agency. You know, they want to get they want to take care of their own first, then look to the outside free agents, and they certainly got a great start at doing that today.
Yeah, and look, we discussed this that with the Colts especially, they want to get the guys that they feel are already on the roster that are due the deals that are harder to actually execute. They want to get those out of the
Mhm.
way, and they were able to do that. We're going to get into each one, the importance of the signing, of the re-signing, what that means potentially for like the rest of the roster, and just kind of how things are going to play out. But hey, you know what? I know that there weren't any outside free agent signings per se, but hey, these are huge and everyone's been talking about them, and they got one of the biggest ones out of the way right out of the gate after a certain guy got franchise tagged, so that's also good.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we knew that coming in that that's kind of what they were going to do, prioritize keeping their own and then worrying about the other free agents after that. And it's not like they're slouches, with Michael Pittman Jr., Grover Stewart, the two big ones getting taken care of today and more certainly to come. Let's look at the chat real quick. We already have a super sticker from Stormy Hellbrook. Thank you so much for all of your support and the $10 super sticker. We really do appreciate it as always. Logan Schmidt, the GOAT, is in the house along with DSG Goodbar. We have Sarah. We have Sean. I know Stats Matt is going to be on breaking news duty. Why haven't we signed every available free agent? But in all seriousness, love the guys they've done deals with so far, and none are overpays. So we're going to get into all of the signings for the Indianapolis Colts today. We already have over 200 live viewers for this video. You guys
Woo!
are fantastic. And if you haven't done so, please go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night. And for this season, special breaking news episodes, because you never know when the Colts are going to make another move. But if you can't catch us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. So Drake, let's dive right into it to our first extension of the day. And of course, we're starting out with Michael Pittman Jr. So the Colts and Michael Pittman Jr. agreed to a 3-year, $70 million extension today. Going to toot my own horn. That's exactly what I predicted when I was looking towards a potential extension for Michael Pittman. Never in a million years would I thought that I would actually have gotten it right on the nose. But 3 years, $70 million extension, $46 million guaranteed, makes Michael Pittman the 8th highest paid wide receiver in terms of average annual value at around 23.33 million per season. And getting it done and getting a 3-year deal allows Michael Pittman Jr. to try to get a new deal before he turns 30 years old. So Drake, what are your thoughts on this deal? What do you think about Michael Pittman Jr. as far as the deal on his end, and why it's good for him, but why it's also a good move for the Indianapolis Colts?
Well, first off, the deal, bravo to you, because this is legitimately what you said it would be, or that you thought it would be. So it's about that. I think that comes out to about 23.33 million a year.
Right.
Now, obviously, that's probably going to be paid to him more in the middle. In year 2 of that, they might have an out or something, that you always have to kind of protect yourself in contracts, but that's kind of how it's going to get laid out. I think that it's not going to be front heavy, because you want to still get him some potential, weapons to surround him with outside of just Josh Downs and Alec Pierce. But hey, he earned the deal. I mean, it's pretty clear that he's been a top 10 receiver for at least since the Carson Wentz year. Okay. Like he's really showcased his talent. He's showcased that it legitimately doesn't matter who's calling the plays, who's throwing the ball. You play with 3 different quarterbacks in one season on a bad team, and you still go out there and put up at the time career numbers, for the most part. So now you've got consistency. You've got Shane Steichen, who is a top level play caller. Richardson is a guy that can take the top off of a defense and open up more for Michael Pittman. So why not sign him to this? He's earned it. I think it's a perfect deal. And I think that I also want to say that it still opens up more room. I think that with the cap situation the Colts are in, they still have some room to fire away and help him out. So he's earned it, man. I'm glad he finally got it done. 8th highest paid receiver in the NFL. And that, to all the fans out there that have ever labeled this guy a wide receiver 2 past his rookie season, the contract says completely otherwise. So.
Yeah, I think it's very well deserved for the Indianapolis Colts, and I know there might be questions tonight on how much cap space do the Colts currently have, and honestly, we're not going to know how much official cap space the Colts have until these deals are officially processed, and we know the structure of these deals, because typically the Colts like to front load them so that way they have it out at the end of the contract, but it could be a little bit different. So we're just gonna have to wait and see until those deals do become official to see how much cap space the Colts do have in those contracts. But you nailed it right on the head, Drake. This deal works great for both sides. It gets Michael Pittman Jr. top 10 wide receiver money, which whether you think he deserves it or not is relevant. The market is what the market is, and for a guy that has consistently put up great numbers as the number 1 wide receiver for the Colts with inconsistent quarterback play all the way around. 7 different starting quarterbacks for the Indianapolis Colts since Pittman was drafted in 2020. And all he does is go out there and produce, because the defense knows that Pittman's the top receiver and he's going to receive the most attention. But I mean, last year, over 100 catches, over 1,100 yards, 4 touchdowns, and you can expect Pittman's best ball to be in front of him. With a healthy Anthony Richardson, getting that connection built, and having the same quarterback for years, being able to really excel in that regard. So yeah, I love this deal for not only for Pittman, but for the Colts as well. Because a lot of people thought that Pittman was going to cost close to $25 million. Instead, it's around 23.33 on an average annual value. It gets done before the extensions of Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb. All of those guys are going to drive the wide receiver market even higher. So for the Colts to be able to get this done before that happens is a win. And I think they're going to save money and be able to use that money elsewhere because they were able to lock in Pittman at this time. So when we talk about Michael Pittman's importance to this Colts team, Drake, I think it's pretty obvious. The number 1 wide receiver for Anthony Richardson. I'm going to say it until I'm blue in the face. It's all about Anthony Richardson, making sure you surround him with top tier talent and making sure that he has the players and in the positions that he needs, so he's in the best possible, he has the best possible chance of succeeding, and Michael Pittman Jr. does that, gives him a security blanket. I know that the Colts are wanting to use Michael Pittman more as a downfield threat as well. So like I said, I think this is the best possible situation for both Pittman and the Colts, and I am fully confident that the best ball is still in front of Pittman. We have not seen it yet.
Oh no, and look, again, I know that I'm kind of rehashing what you said, but consistency at quarterback is huge, and it's just going to make a guy like him even better than he's already been. But just the fact that this happened so quickly, I think it's just 6 days after the franchise tag deadline, that shows you how freaking close the Colts were to making a deal happen. I mean, they made this done. Like, this was the first thing they did. So it locks down your number 1 guy. Now everybody you add is just going to make him better and make the person you're bringing in, whether it be free agency or the draft, better. It's just an all-around great situation, and good for Pittman, good for Steichen, and even better for Anthony Richardson to have a guy like that to throw to.
Well, and another thing too is this deal was done. And what we heard is this deal was done last week. The only reason it wasn't announced is because Michael Pittman Jr. was on vacation, and
No.
and until the deal is actually signed, the Colts aren't going to announce anything. So rather than give him the opportunity for something to happen where the big deal falls through, the player backs out. That's why the Colts placed the franchise tag on him, just to make sure nothing was going to happen there. And now that Pittman is back from vacation, was able to sign that contract, or at least agree to that contract, it all got taken care of. So I did hear that there was a chance that the Colts wanted a fourth year to lock down Pittman. But again, Pittman wants to be able to hit the market, or at least re-up for a new deal with the Colts before he turns 30 years old. So they did come to a compromise on that, and it ends up with a 3-year, $70 million deal. But yeah, Drake, I think just looking at this as a whole, and how this whole situation played out, couldn't ask for a better or a smoother contract negotiation for the Colts and Michael Pittman Jr. Definitely nothing like when we were talking about the Jonathan Taylor saga just a few months ago. But now Anthony Richardson has his number one option. The Colts have shown how important Michael Pittman Jr. is to the franchise, not only what he does on the field, but the leader he has become within that locker room. The Colts love Michael Pittman Jr. and Pittman loves being in Indy. So really a good to see. And now the Colts can rely on their wide receiver one for the foreseeable future and throughout his prime years.
Yeah, and this is just a number that always baffles me, is that he got targeted 156 times in 16 games. That's basically 10 times a game. I hope for Pittman's sake he doesn't have to get targeted that much, because I guarantee you he's still going to be the most targeted guy, but with less on his plate, those numbers are just going to be even more efficient than they were. The guy still caught 109 out of 156 targets when everyone knew where the ball was going.
Exactly. We could see those numbers go up in terms of actual catches and yards, because if the Colts do get more weapons around Anthony Richardson, have a full year with Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, you add Brock Bowers to the equation.
Which now the Chargers have a tight end.
Listen,
So
the
just
train
saying,
the
it's
train
picking
is
up.
picking up speed, Drake. You guys need to hop on the Brock Bowers to Indy train while you still
It's
can.
gaining steam.
But yeah, I think I can see those numbers going up, and like I said, Pittman looking even better after this deal once the Colts get more options around Anthony Richardson and takes the pressure off of Michael Pittman Jr. But let's move on to the next signing, Drake, the other huge signing to bring this guy back into the fold, and that's Big Grove. Grover Stewart agreed to a 3-year, $39 million extension with the Indianapolis Colts. The exact guarantees in his contract have not come out yet, I don't think. If they have, please someone throw them in the chat. But for 39 million guarantee, that's an average annual value of 13 million, a little bit less than what I was thinking, Drake. I thought he was going to come in at around 14, maybe 14 and a half million, so less than I actually thought Grover Stewart was going to make, but it still makes him the 19th highest paid defensive tackle in terms of average annual value. So what are your thoughts on the Grover Stewart deal? I know this definitely helps plug a big hole the Colts would have had if Stewart would have went elsewhere. Now they have their best run stopping defender right back in the middle of the defensive line next to DeForest Buckner.
Yeah. First off, just to highlight it, you were close though, because in Andrew's piece, he had it as an estimation of about 3 years, 43.5 million, which is about 14.5 million annually. So the Colts actually are 4.5 million less, and they still got Grover. So I think that I just think that this makes a lot of sense. I think given especially and it's I'm losing it. Christian Wilkins, that insane contract he just got. That's like, when I saw that, I could not believe 4 years, $110 million. That's almost $30 million a year for a defensive tackle. So look, Grover Stewart doesn't put on pressure like a guy like Wilkins. Okay. Wilkins almost had 10 sacks. Okay. But Stewart is just a truly disruptive guy in the middle. And then you put him next to Buckner, and it's just fair to say that if he didn't have Buckner, you probably don't see as amazing of run defense from Grover, because he'd probably get double teamed. But him and Buckner together are a true force. And Stewart is one of those two guys. Without him, Buckner gets a lot of double teams, as we saw last year, and then Taven Bryan, Eric Johnson leave a wide open door in the A gap. So it's a very good signing. I think, like you said, they got him for cheaper than what even we were thinking he'd get signed for. And now you can just address the depth. You can just bring in somebody else that's probably, I still say Shelby Harris, who just played for the Browns, great run defender, actually can put pressure on the passer. You just need to help out Grover so when he takes a breather, you're not a liability up front. So I love the deal. I think that, just like Michael Pittman, Grover Stewart's another guy that's absolutely earned a contract like this. He's earned the chance to prove that he can do this into his early 30s. And hey, there's nothing that's shown me that he's not going to. He's played fantastic football, and, he missed 6 games due to suspension last year, but when he was in, he was a difference maker.
Oh, yeah. And as GSG Goodbar says, Grover is essentially a yard and a half less per rush when he is in the game. And when Stewart was out for those 6 games, the Colts run defense was abysmal. And then when you take into account what he did when he was in, that's a huge difference. So yes, the Colts still do need to address getting some depth behind Grover Stewart and really solidifying the interior of their defensive line as far as run defense is concerned. But the first step was getting Grover Stewart back and getting him to a long-term deal. And I think I mentioned this in my piece too, but yeah, Stewart's 30 years old. And for a lot of different positions, you think, that 30-year-old mark could start to go downhill. For defensive tackles, it's a little bit different. They can still produce past 30 years old and for quite a while. So getting another 3-year deal for Grover Stewart, that'll put him about 33 when he's up. The Colts, if I had to guess, the Colts will probably front load that with the guarantees just in case if they need it out after that second year. But if not, then they can start to go on a year-by-year basis for Grover Stewart if he can keep plugging along and playing at a high level. And Drake, I think you talked about it. Grover Stewart's never going to be a guy that gets 8-9 sacks as a defensive tackle, but that's not his role. His role is to be that run defender, that one technique that takes on the double teams, gets through and doesn't just makes life hell for running backs. You have other guys to get after the quarterback, like a DeForest Buckner, a Samson Ebukam, Kwity Paye, and Dio Adangbo. You don't need a whole defensive line with pass rushers, because if you do, teams are just going to gash you with the run, and then those pass rushers become irrelevant. You need those run-stopping defensive tackles in there to clog up the middle and push the pocket forward. And when Grover Stewart does pass rush, I think he does a pretty good job of that, just collapsing the pocket. He may not get sacks or a lot of pressures per se, but he does make things uncomfortable for a quarterback. So being able to contain Grover or retain Grover Stewart for this Colts defense, massive hit. In my opinion, and a lot of people don't, because they don't maybe watch the Colts on a regular basis, might not see how important this signing is. But in my opinion, outside of Michael Pittman Jr., Grover Stewart was the most important in-house free agent for the Colts to retain.
Yeah, and it goes back to what Andrew said. When you looked at what this defense looked like without Grover Stewart, it was abysmal. I mean, it was awful to watch. It was like watching, just a team that has just wide open holes, which makes it super easy for even a passing offense to just kind of shift their game plan to, hey, it's a lot easier to run the ball, a lot less turnover prone when you run the ball than when you try to throw. So it just kind of opened up the Colts for a lot of bad defensive drives. And so I know that he only played 11 games, but the guy, for some reason, still has the most QB hits he's ever had in his career with 8. And then last season, he was a busy man. The guy had 70 tackles. He had 4 sacks. He had 9 tackles for loss. And what Andrew says about, he doesn't get the pressures on the quarterback, but what his big role is that he just commands double teams a lot. Okay. He's a huge guy and an athletic one at that. So that's just going to open up other opportunities that are he's kind of an unsung hero, a lot of snaps. All right. His numbers are going to deceive you. He's much better at run defending than his statistical numbers show. If you look at his PFF grades, they're fantastic. And then last season, he even got to the quarterback multiple times and actually put some physicality on those guys. So Stewart's a perfect fit for what the Colts are trying to do. All right. He doesn't, like Andrew said, he doesn't need to be a pass rusher inside. That's for DeForest Buckner to accomplish. The guy had another 8 sacks last season. So for the role that he has, for the importance he has in the run game, I think this is most deserving for Grover Stewart and good for him because now the Colts just, again, they do have to address the depth issue because you can't have another Taven Bryan or Eric Johnson back there just being a revolving door in the run game.
Yeah, exactly. And you can still find that in free agency, especially in like the second and third waves or in the draft. I think there's plenty of late round options that you could plug in there to beat run stopping defensive tackles behind Grover Stewart. I want to give a shout out to Joshua Smith. Joshua says, thanks y'all for the coverage. Always keeping off season on fire with the deals and talk. I think off season is just as exciting to see the moves made. He said, let's go for the shoe. So Joshua, really appreciate you tuning in, bud, and all the support that you give us as well. But yeah, Drake, and another thing, Greg, Grover Stewart, this is again good for the locker room. You guys got to remember that this is still a top priority for the Colts as well. Grover Stewart is a leader with DeForest Buckner in that locker room for the defensive line group. That matters to this team. And when you have a guy that's a high level player who's done it for a while, who's a good leader in the locker room, that's the type of guy you want to keep on your team and you want to pay and spend the good money on. So hell of a deal for Grover Stewart. And again, no problem with the extension. The extension actually came in lower than I thought it was going to. So great deal for the Colts. Great deal for Grover Stewart. Still gets a $3 million raise from what he was making on his previous deal. And that's not little change there, Drake. So Grover and his sink chicken wings are going to be staying in Indy for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and again, it continues to give the Colts one of the best duos in the defensive interior that the NFL has. All right, it's not talked about enough. These guys together, they're a problem. Buckner can get to the passer. Grover can remove your run game. Those guys together, they really give you a lot of fits. So good for Grover, good for the Colts, and good for the fans as well because now they don't have to watch running backs get 100+ yards on this team.
That wasn't the only defender that the Colts signed to an extension today, Drake. This one kind of out of the blue, but very well deserved. And that's Colts and Zaire Franklin. So the Colts and Zaire Franklin agreed to a 3-year, $31.26 million extension. Zaire Franklin still has a year left on his current deal. The 3 years, $10 million that he had signed a couple of seasons ago. So this extension actually does not kick in until 2025. So it doesn't have any effect on the cap for the Colts this season. It's all about getting him locked in at this value so that way he is good to go next year when he would have became a free agent. But because of Zaire Franklin coming in, becoming a starter and breaking the franchise record in tackles the past 2 seasons, the Colts thought it was time that he got a raise, and deservedly so. As of right now, and this will probably change by the time the extension kicks in next year, but as of right now, the extension makes Zaire Franklin the 6th highest paid inside linebacker on an average annual value basis at around $10.42 million on an average annual value. Like I said, begins in 2025. And so it's a really good deal in my opinion. But before I get your thoughts on it, Drake, Patrick, the CFO, coming in hot with a super chat. Patrick, thank you so much, buddy, for all of your support. As always, it seems like you're and Drake's gonna take a nice sip of his
Still
beverage.
got plenty, guys.
For the second time tonight on the super chat, second drink for Drake. Patrick says, get ready for the overnight Colts news drop, 10 p.m. He's predicting Rigoberto Sanchez re-signed for 4 years. For all the Ballard doesn't do anything, folks. Yeah, Rigoberto Sanchez still out there, and honestly would not rule out a return for Sanchez. He's been a great punter for the Colts, and that's something that the Colts would do. I remember last season when they signed Matt Gay, it was about at 11 o'clock at night. I was literally getting into bed when the news dropped, had to pull out the laptop to write that piece. So yeah, don't be surprised if Rigoberto Sanchez is still out there, but Drake, he's one of the guys that as of right now, I'd expect to be back with the Colts next season.
Yeah, I'll probably be changing a poopy or pee-pee diaper in the middle of that news and be sleep deprived on top of it. No, look, man, I always go back to this. Matt Hack last season really showed the Indianapolis Colts that punting matters.
Mhm.
Okay, and Rigoberto has been a great punter, and he had a great season last year. All right, so I think that that's just it's a re-signing no one's really talking about that I've heard outside of us. That I think makes a big impact because hey, a punter can really change the game for if you drop that team inside the 10, inside the 5 man, that makes life really difficult on an opposing offense.
I agree. Patrick, thank you so much for the super chat, buddy. As always, Drake and I always appreciate your support. Also, want to give a shout out to the Bills Bunker. The Bills Bunker said just subbed supporting other NFL YouTubers.
Let's
Thank you so
go.
much, Bills Bunker. Bills Mafia is welcome here anytime. Really
Always.
appreciate it. And hey, Bills Bunker, and to all the new subscribers, might as well get our plug in here, Drake. As always, something important is coming up, and that is, if I can find the graphic here,
I
and
think I
that's
know what it is.
it's the Indie Draft Guide. So make
It
sure to
is.
pre-order the Indie Draft Guide with over 225 write-ups on the various prospects in the NFL draft, special features and interviews, all with a fit with the Indianapolis Colts. I've already been working on it. Zach and the rest of the Horseshoe Huddle crew have been working on those fits and those scouting reports. So make sure you use the link in our description with the code DRAFTMISS, and you get $1 off. So make sure you do that to pre-order. So as soon as it drops in early April, you'll get your copy directly to you. Only $9. Make sure you take a look at that and get your your pre-order, of the Indie Draft Guide. So got a little sidetracked there, Drake, but that's all right. Let's get back on to talking about Zaire Franklin's extension. What do you think of the deal for number 44, defensive special teams captain for pretty much his entire time with the Indianapolis Colts? Now cashes in on a big deal.
Look, man, he really came out of nowhere when he just started racking up tackles and played fantastic football in 2022. But then he supplants that and sets yet again the Colts franchise record for tackles in a season. Now, the only knock on both EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin is that at times, and I have to preface that this is very lighthearted, but at times they do struggle in coverage. Okay, so I think outside of that, though, you're looking at a complete linebacker. You're looking at a guy who is the field general for the defense, especially in the second level with the linebackers and with the slot corners. He's a big piece of the defense, and he's a very surefire tackler. Clearly, it shows by his numbers, but he also at times, to go against what I said, he can play good coverage at times. It's just inconsistent. But that's about the only knock you can put on Zaire Franklin. Outside of that, you're talking about a guy who I think was a sixth round selection, or no, seventh round selection.
Yep.
He's seventh round out of Syracuse. The guy just comes in and he's initially, he's a special teamer, then he's the special teams captain, and then you're kind of thinking, oh, he's just a name on the roster, kind of like EJ Speed not long ago. Now both these guys, including Zaire, right there at the head of it all, they're starting and they're the a centerpiece of the defense. So I think that he's earned it. Like you mentioned, it was unexpected, but I think that he's earned this contract, and it makes him. I think you put here the sixth highest paid inside linebacker. So that's fantastic for Zaire, and hopefully he can just continue to hit that stride. And hell, I'm campaigning for him to get 200 plus tackles. The guy actually did. Let me look. He played 16 games, not even 17. Still got 179 tackles. Beat his previous record by 12.
Exactly. And this isn't like I'm completely fine with paying your star middle linebacker around 10 million a year. It's you guys, it's still half the average annual value that Shaquille Leonard was making when he signed his huge deal, and obviously Shaq had a lot more turnovers and maybe was a better playmaker than Zaire Franklin, certainly with multiple Pro Bowls and all pros. But at the same time, the off-ball linebacker is still not a premium position. So you're still getting a very, very good linebacker in Zaire Franklin, probably the top leader on your team. He's no longer just a leader of the special teams. When you look at the Indianapolis Colts, their leader is Zaire Franklin. He's the guy that breaks them down before every single game. So to be able to get $10 million, it's a well-deserved raise, because when he did sign his contract, he was one of the best special teams players in the NFL. Now he's entered the upper echelon of inside linebackers. So and while he may struggle sometimes in pass coverage, and I think that will that will change.
Yes.
I think that against the run, Zaire Franklin is one of the best inside linebackers against the run. You have to be to get that amount of tackles, and we've seen what he can do against like guys like Derrick Henry, when he iced that game against the Tennessee Titans. So a very fair deal for Zaire Franklin. I know he wanted to get this done. Glad the Colts were able to get it done right away. So that way this again doesn't linger into next offseason, and they can figure out another to kind of continue to plan for what's going to happen. So now, why did they do this now? I think it's pretty simple. The reason they did this now is because he not only did he deserve it, his other contract was for a special teams player rather than a starting inside linebacker, but again, it kind of helps set the deal for Zaire Franklin. The Colts know they want to keep him long term, and say he does go out there and get, like you said, Drake, 185, 190 tackles in 2024, makes his first Pro Bowl, makes an all-pro team. The price of Zaire Franklin right before he hits free agency would go up, and then you're talking 15-16 million dollars a year, and the Colts probably don't want to do that and pay another linebacker that high of money. So you lock him in now when he deserves his raise, and before potentially having to pay him even more down the line. I think it's a great move for the Colts. It pays Franklin what he is worth, and now you don't have to worry about your biggest leader, the leader of your team, becoming a free agent next season.
Yeah, and he's also been like top 10. I think I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I don't want to overshoot it, but I dare say top 5 in tackles in the league the past 2 seasons. He was consistently leading the league last year, and if he plays that additional game, you could probably tack on another 12 tackles, which puts him almost at 200. So, I mean, the guy's busy. He's just busy. But to give you an idea of what his contract was when he first entered the league, 7th round pick at the time, he had a 4-year, $2.5 million contract, which is just about $636,000 a year. That in the NFL is dirt money. That is just low. That's lowest level. Then he had a 3-year, $3.33 million deal. So yes, he's outplayed that. I'm happy for Zaire. I'm pumped for him. And I love what Patrick said, that he's happy he doesn't have to move his podcast studio.
Exactly.
So the trenches with EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin get to continue.
Yeah. So he will stay in Indy long term. That's what Franklin wanted. That's what the Colts wanted. There really wasn't any reason to put off the deal, and this way, it gives Franklin what he deserves, and the Colts will likely save some money on the back end as the inside linebacker market continues to climb. Because as Stats Matt says, middle linebacker markets have been pretty big today. Locking Zaire down keeps the Colts from paying more next season. So good move on both sides. Keeps that leader right in the middle. Colts still need some help as far as coverage linebackers are concerned. But your leader and the guy right in the center, you've got him for the rest of his prime years. And then the Colts made one more extension today, Drake. And that's Tyquan Lewis, a guy that we talked about as being an underrated free agent for the Colts to retain. And Tyquan Lewis, after back-to-back seasons with devastating knee injuries, the Colts signing him to 1-year prove-it deals, he finally gets his payday. 2 years, $12 million extension for the rotational pass rusher of the Colts. A $7.7 million guaranteed in this deal. Fantastic for Tyquan Lewis. He's such a feel-good story. Lewis is also, again, one of the leaders in the locker room. Are you recognizing a pattern here? The Colts want to keep their own and keep the guys that have a big importance not only on the field but in that locker room as well. Those are the types of dudes that you want to pay. So $7.7 million guaranteed for Tyquan Lewis. Drake, what do you think of the signing overall?
I absolutely love it. I think that Tyquan Lewis has earned this contract. I think that the Colts believing in him, even after his left and right patellar tendon injuries, back-to-back seasons, by the way, sidelined the guy, and his future was in question. And even in 2022, in 2023, I was thinking, man, he loved to have him, but he's a very risky signing, and you have to put health before everything else in the NFL. And all he did was go out there and play every game. All he did was go out there and rank only behind DeForest freaking Buckner and Samson Ebukam. By the way, one had 8 sacks, the other, Samson Ebukam, led the team with 9.5. He was only behind those 2 guys in pass pressure on quarterbacks. He was in
Exactly.
front of Dio Dangbo. He was in front of Kwity Paye. Okay, the guy was and he's a rotational guy that played like 450 snaps total.
I think he played literally like 30%, 30 to 35% of the snaps somewhere in there, which is insane to be third on the team in pressures when you're only playing that small amount of snaps.
Yeah, and this deal is actually a pretty good bargain, because I think I had a piece recently which was about some free agent defenders the Colts could sign, and there was another guy that I thought of that if you sign with Tyquan Lewis, you're just making the entire depth of that team better. And I think that he's earned it. I think that he just boosts the confidence and the performance of other guys that are starting, like Kwity Paye and Samson Ebukam, Dio Dengbaugh, all those guys, Grover Stewart, Buckner. But I'm really excited to see what Charlie Partridge is going to do with him. Okay, because that's where every one of these defenders on the front, I'm really intrigued to see what Charlie Partridge is going to do with them, because they set the Indy era sack record with a defensive line coach the Colts didn't even re-sign. Okay, so that's where I'm really intrigued to see what Partridge is going to do. I just love Lewis, and he's one hell of a constant motor that really complements that defense well.
And I think he deserves a steal for what he has
Yes.
done to work his way back to produce in the manner that he has. And Drake, I mean, what's something that Chris Ballard has said this offseason? We need to get more consistent pressure on the quarterback. These Nuggets guys, I don't make them up. He's saying these things. He's telling you what he wants to do. So if he says we need to get more consistent pressure on the quarterback, but then let's go the guy that got the third most pressures on the team, it's not gonna add up. So that's why I always thought Tyquan Lewis was a prime candidate to be brought back with the Indianapolis Colts, because you can never have enough pass rushers. The Colts want to load up on guys that get after the quarterback and pressure the quarterback at a consistent rate. Tyquan Lewis, for a rotational pass rusher, does that very, very well. And by the way, he's pretty good against the run. He's a good all-around rotational pass rusher to have as your fourth guy, really, behind Ebukam, Paye, and Odangbo. It's a great signing. Great depth to have back there. So, and if you're expecting Kwity Paye and Dio Odangbo to take another leap under Charlie Partridge and going into their fourth season, getting more consistent pressure on the quarterback, I mean, you're looking for an even better pass rush than you did a season ago, when I thought it took a step forward, in my opinion, especially with having Samson Ebukam over on that other side. So yeah, Drake, I do think that it's a very underrated signing, one that really only Colts fans are going to pay attention to. But there were quite a few other teams that were bidding for Tyquan Lewis and wanting his services. Ultimately, the market was set. The Colts went out there and matched it and wanted to bring him back into Indy. And Tyquan Lewis has shown his love for Indianapolis as well, and it ultimately got the job done. So again, just continuing to add depth on for this pass rushing unit, continuing to add to this defense, and I really think that it takes some pressure off the Colts as far as going out and getting maybe a edge early in the draft, like first or second round. I do think that the Colts will add pass rushers in the draft, because remember, you can never have enough pass rushers. They may even add another pass rusher in free agency as well. Josh Uche, I thought, has been a name floated around by our colleagues, both Shad McGinnis and Zach Hicks, a guy that's really a third down pass rushing specialist. I think that'd be a perfect fit behind Samson Ebukam as that Leo. So the Colts aren't done in that area. They're certainly going to continue to gauge the market. But a good start is bringing back Tyquan Lewis, because, again, not only what he can do on the field, but a leader in that locker room as well. That matters to the Colts, and that's going to matter when these young guys start going through the hard times, and when the Colts get into these tough stretches and tough games into late December and January football into the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's just crucial. Like, I know that it's kind of cheesy to say this, but it's just crucial to have guys to back up your starters. All right, like, and when those guys need a break, you don't want to miss a beat, especially on third down. And Andrews coined it the NASCAR package. That's
Mhm.
really that's what Taekwon Lewis is he is a speed demon that just has an insane burst. He's got a concentrated amount of strength, and he just shoves your tackle right into your quarterback. That's where those pressures get generated, is when the quarterback has to make hasty decisions. That's what Taekwon Lewis does to quarterbacks. And by the way, he had like 430 overall snaps. That doesn't even factor in which ones were run, which ones were pass rushing, and he still got 44 pressures. So great signing. Love the signing. I think that it just solidifies more and more that, this is a team that wants to bring the pressure. They want to bring the hurt to these quarterbacks. And again, I'm just excited to see Charlie Partridge. I was going to say, I think Jesse Newman mentioned something real quick. That's interesting. Is Simmons a good fit? I think I'm speaking for Andrew here too, that Justin Simmons is pretty much a good fit anywhere. Okay.
I agree.
It's really that he is going to, because he hasn't missed a beat. All right. He's like, I
Mhm.
think 30 or 29, but if he's not 30, he's on the doorstep, but he just hasn't missed a beat. So I think he's going to cost quite a bit of money. And Antoine Winfield was available. The Colts didn't get him.
Yeah, for Justin Simmons, I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be top of the market
A lot of
safety
money.
value, and I just don't know if that's what the Colts really are looking for at this point. I think that you're probably at the safety spot. I don't know if the Colts are probably going to go over 11 to 11 10 11 million a year for a safety, and it all depends who it is too, so in my opinion, Justin Simmons, a good landing spot for him would probably be Philadelphia. I know they were really in on Xavier McKinney and making a run at him. Xavier McKinney getting a deal with the Packers that was much more than the Colts, so I think we're even willing to offer. So I just don't see it lining up with the deal that Justin Simmons is going to be offered. I just don't think it's going to line up with him coming to the Indianapolis Colts, but we'll have to see at that point. But Drake, getting back and kind of just putting a bow on these extensions here. I mean, you got Pittman, Stewart, Franklin, which wasn't a free agent, but still getting that deal done, I think is a good idea. Taekwon Lewis, that's three of your top in-house free agents back on day one. So the Colts may not have gone out and made a bunch of big moves to bring in outside guys, but those other guys were still free agents, and if they would be playing on another team next year, the Colts would be worse because of that, especially with Pittman and Grover Stewart. So those are huge deals to get done to bring back for the Indianapolis Colts. You kind of have to look at it in that lens rather than wanting to go out and get all the fresh new toys. Those guys are still pretty damn good toys for the Indianapolis Colts to have. And guys, you also have to remember the winners of free agency rarely ever are the winners in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl. So the teams that always spend the most doesn't necessarily always translate to winning on the field once we get into the fall months when things actually matter.
Yeah, and everyone loves new names, right? Everyone loves the new shiny the new shiny weapon, if you will. But you're talking about your top pass catcher. You're talking about one of your top run defenders. You're talking about one of your top tacklers, linebackers, defensive players, and defensive leaders. And then you're talking about a guy that, by the way, DSG Goodbar, 10% pressure rate off the charts. Good. How about 17? Because he had 44 pressures off of 259 pass rush snaps. So that is even better. So they got 4 signings here that are crucial to the future of the team, people. So these are great signings. And I'm super duper pumped that they've already got these out of the way, because now you can start addressing other things. Don't be surprised, though, if you start hearing a Kenny Moore and a Julian Blackman, because they've also got the money and can still make an impact in free agency. They have the money to sign both those guys and still, address the rest of the needs that they want to do through free agency anyway.
Colts definitely still in the hunt for Kenny Moore.
Oh yeah.
As far as I've heard, the it's not a done deal, but the sides are close. The Colts definitely want to bring Kenny Moore back, place a very high priority on Kenny Moore. So whether it happens tonight or in a day or two from now. At this point, I'd be shocked if Kenny Moore was playing elsewhere. He is getting interest from other teams, but at the same time, Kenny Moore wants to be in Indy, so it's close. It's going to be close, or the deal is close, just isn't there quite yet. But again, I'd really want to see, or I would be shocked to see Kenny Moore anywhere else but Indy. Drake, let's talk about the latest Colts news and rumors, because there are still more news that the Colts were involved in today outside of the extensions. One was the Colts lost their backup quarterback. Gardner Minshew signed a 2-year, $25 million contract with the Las Vegas Raiders today. And Drake, this is kind of what we talked about. We expected that after that Pro Bowl, after that season, Gardner Minshew's price tag not only would go up, but Gardner Minshew himself would want to go to a team where he can compete to start. He gets that in Las Vegas, will compete with Aiden O'Connell for the starting job. The Raiders still might draft a quarterback or bring in more competition there. We'll have to see, but Minshew was never going to start in Indy because this is Anthony Richardson's team. So, and the Colts were never going to match what he was going to get on the open market, getting $12.5 million per year. That's kind of what we talked about. It was going to be in excess of $10 million. Sure enough, $12.5 million per season for Gardner Minshew with the Las Vegas Raiders. And hey, I mean, hats off to Minshew. He earned it. Great to see him cash in on the open market and get a deal like that. And you wish him well at his next destination, because he was a great teammate for the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, you can't say enough about Gardner Minshew, right? I mean, he filled in for damn near the entire season, all right? And he was nowhere near as mobile, didn't have the arm of Richardson, didn't have the risk-taking of a guy who's more of a gunslinger. He was a really efficient, short yardage passer, all right? And he operated Shane Steichen's scheme very well, a lot of times with limited weapons. All right. And injuries all around him. He earned the hell out of this contract. All right. He's earned the right to go fight for a starting job. Now you get Devontae freaking Adams. You get a team that's got Jacoby Myers. You got a team that, like the Raiders, that have some pieces there. I know that Jacobs just went to the Packers, but this is a scheme, I think, that favors Gardner Minshew also, where you could really fit the short yardage kind of, run the ball with short yardage completions type of thing. And $12.5 million. I mean, congratulations, Gardner. Jacoby Brissett, by the way, I think was signed something similar it was either right before he started after Luck retired, or the year after he played in 2020, I believe. They gave him like a 2-year, $14 million contract, or something.
The Colts gave him, I think it was around $20 million for that next season on that extension, because I do remember specifically between Phillip Rivers, who was making 25, and Brissett was making 20. The Colts were paying $45 million for two quarterbacks. So
they don't do that.
I mean, good money. Yeah, right, exactly. So with Minshew moving on, it does beg the question, who's going to be the backup quarterback, excuse me, for the Indianapolis Colts next season, and I wrote a piece on this. It's on horseshoehuddle.com to go check it out. But for me, guys like Tyrod Taylor, Tyler Huntley, Marcus Mariota, those are probably my top 3 guys that I think could be in the running, guys that are veterans, that have been backups before, that are going to provide support to Anthony Richardson. But if they do have to come in, they can win you games. And all 3 of those guys have done that in the league. In my opinion, it doesn't seem like the Colts would go the backup quarterback route. I just don't really see any in this class that I look at and see, that would be a really good backup for the Colts. So in my opinion, they're going to go the veteran route, still bring in somebody behind a young Anthony Richardson to try to help him, support him, and give him some guidance as he makes it through his a first full season in the NFL.
Yeah, you don't want to put a backup quarterback behind your starter that has less professional experience than your starter. And then I think Tyrod Taylor, I think he's perfect. He's going to cost you like $3.5 million, 3.3, something like that.
It would probably be similar to the deal Minshew got last year.
You're talking about 1 year, $3.5 million. That's cheap. That's cheap to provide really good Pro Bowl level, by the way, because Tyrod Taylor's a former Pro Bowler. You're talking about Pro Bowl level, veteranship, mentorship behind Anthony Richardson. And God forbid, knock on wood, of course, he goes down for a game. You're talking about a guy that comes in that is efficient with the ball like Minshew. He's actually got a little bit more of an arm than Minshew, and he's mobile, which means you do not have to change that much with the scheme. You can kind of keep that rolling like you did with Richardson. Obviously, Taylor or Huntley aren't the freak athlete, but either one of those guys, even Mariota, if you really want to be dirt cheap, all three of those are great to at least acceptable fits for the backup role for Anthony Richardson.
I would agree. Let's talk about some guys that we had talked about as potential targets for the Indianapolis Colts in free agency. And chat, if you want to throw some of your targets or guys that you would have liked to seen on the Colts that got signed today, make sure you go throw those in the chat as well. But I'm going to name off a few of ones that we had talked about here on the show. Drake, of course, Xavier McKinney. That was our pick for the top free agent safety for the Indianapolis Colts. He signed a massive deal with the Green Bay Packers today. Alohi Gilman, the one that got away. The Gilman was the safety that I thought would be a perfect fit. Ends up staying with the Chargers. And then some edge rushers. Andrew Van Ginkel, which I know broke Patrick's heart to see him. He signed with the Vikings, as well as Jonathan Grenard, former Texans pass rusher that I think our buddy Noah Compton brought up on the show. He signed with the Vikings as well for I think on an average of $19 million a year. So really big deal for Grenard. So definitely some targets that we thought would be good fits for the Colts. But in terms of, safeties, there's still a lot of really good safeties out there that the Colts could go after. A cornerback that we thought would been a really good fit, Kendall Fuller. Kendall Fuller is still out there. The Lions traded for Carlton Davis. They might be out of the L'Jarius Sneed competition, so that takes someone away that won't be going after L'Jarius Sneed. That maybe the Colts continuing to work on the Chiefs on a trade there. So there's still a lot of guys out there, but definitely some of those fits hurt. For me, especially, it's Gilman.
Yeah, and I was on the Alohi Gilman train as well. But the thing is, fully expect the Colts to address. I wouldn't be surprised because there's just so much talent still at safety on the free agency market. I wouldn't be surprised to see them sign someone and still draft a safety. I mean, they cannot let the free safety position, especially, they cannot let that position go again. And you can't trust Nick Cross yet with those duties. Okay, so I still think they're going to figure it out through free agency, potentially even the draft as well. But yeah, Alohi Gilman, perfect fit. But yeah, like you said, there's still plenty of names out there that you can get for probably his type of money. 2 years, 11 million, 10 million, 12 million. You can get some really good services at safety and maybe even get some hybrid type stuff with free and strong, which the Colts absolutely love.
Right. Darnell Savage was also a fit that I think could have been good with the Colts. He signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars today. But here's some names that still are out there in the free agent market in terms of safeties. We talked about Justin Simmons. That probably isn't a realistic option. No. Quandre Diggs is out there. That's a name that a lot of people have talked about. CJ Gardner-Johnson, Jordan Whitehead, certainly some names that could be of interest there. I know if you're talking about like guys like a Jeremy Chin, who's a local indie guy, Julian Blackmon obviously is still out there. So Cameron Curl. There's still a lot of really good safeties available that the Colts could potentially snag in free agency. So again, you can't, if you spend all your money on day one, it's likely doesn't come back and help you in a good way. So it's going to be a process, guys. So just stick to the process. I think for today's haul, the Colts have done a really good job of keeping very high impact players and still keeping flexibility with their options.
Yeah, and you also have to think, everybody, that if you go out, like Andrew said, and you sign everyone day one, you may sign somebody that wasn't going to be a day one or a first wave free agent signing for too much money than what they were worth. So it's a balanced process of getting the guys you need to re-sign back with your team and also evaluating the market, because you don't want to jump too soon, because every day you wait, those guys get cheaper. Okay, so we'll just have to see. But again, safety, corner, I think that if you see more addressing happen, it's probably going to be through either one of those positions or maybe even offensive line depth.
Giving A+ money to B players is what Chris Ballard always says. So our final rumor today that I thought was very interesting, and I know if Colts fans saw it, they probably or definitely made them raise their eyebrows. But if you haven't, hey, get ready to raise your eyebrows. So NFL insider Ben Albright, he's a guy that covers the Denver Broncos,
Good
is a
source.
guy that knows a lot, is very connected within the NFL. When we're talking about the trade market for a certain quarterback out of Chicago, Justin Fields, with Kirk Cousins going to the Atlanta Falcons, Russell Wilson going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, the trade market for Justin Fields seems to have dried up pretty quickly. And he said he wouldn't be surprised if Justin Fields found himself as the backup quarterback with either the Eagles or the Indianapolis Colts. So that's the first time that I ever thought of Justin Fields potentially backing up Anthony Richardson. Not exactly sure how I feel about it. So I'm gonna throw it over to you, Drake. Chat, let me know what your thoughts are. But Drake, what would you think of the Colts trading for Justin Fields to back up Anthony Richardson?
Don't do it. Don't do it at all. I mean, don't trade. Justin Fields, in my humble opinion, has still the skills to be a starting quarterback elsewhere. Okay. Everyone pit Atlanta, but they got Cousins. I just still think there's more there. And I think you only bring him in if it's a Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell type of situation. All right. You trade for him if you're wanting him to compete for that starting role, and then he shows you something. The Colts are bought into Richardson. All right. And Fields to bring him in to back up Richardson. I'd still prefer Tyler Huntley, Tyrod Taylor, somebody like that as a backup. So while Albright is a very connected source, I think that's a bit of a stretch, but also you never know what the hell could happen. I just don't see Ballard saying, hey, you know what? Let's go get Justin Fields to back up Anthony Richardson. Like, not happening, dude. No way.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think it makes much sense for the Indianapolis Colts, because were the Colts really interested in Fields in that draft? Yes. If the Colts would have traded up for a quarterback, have it on good authority that it would have been for Justin Fields. However, it would only be a 1-year rental, because then you're obviously make the decision on Justin Fields' 5th-year option. Obviously, that's not getting picked up. So it'd only be for 1 year. You're searching for another backup quarterback after that. I understand wanting potentially the playing style of a Justin Fields or a mobile quarterback behind Anthony Richardson. But again, you can get that with a Tyrod Taylor, with a Tyler Huntley, a Marcus Mariota, someone that's not going to cost you draft capital to give up. So I just don't see it, unless it was like a conditional 7th round pick that he could turn into like a 6th. I mean, no, you count me out on that. I really don't think that the Colts need any of that nonsense in here, nor do they want to put that around Anthony Richardson. Just an unnecessary move, in my opinion, when you can go out and sign a veteran backup for that will help Anthony Richardson and not cause any potential drama or any potential thought that the Colts are wanting to sit Richardson and make it a quarterback competition. No, I don't. I think we're good on that, and the Colts will just let Chicago kind of try to deal and figure out that mess themselves. But Drake, I mean, it seems like, and I'm gonna knock on wood here, because as soon as I say this, something's going to happen, and the Colts are going to sign somebody else or re-sign Kenny Moore. But the first day of free agency, maybe not in the books totally, but the Colts made a lot of moves. It wasn't outside moves. It was all about retaining their own players, and that's a part of free agency too. And overall, looking at the contracts that were given out to the players and everything, I think it's fair for both sides. It's going to be interesting to see how the Colts structure all of these. That's when we will get a full opinion, or a full look, not an opinion, but a full look and concrete evidence of what the cap space that the Colts have left is going to look like. But Pittman, 3 years, $70 million. Stewart, 3 years, $39 million. Franklin, 3 years, $31.26 million. Tyquan Lewis, 2 years, $12 million. All really good signings for the players and really good signings for the Colts, in my opinion.
And you have to retain the talent you have in the building. All right. They know everything. And plus, Lewis, Franklin, Pittman, they're all on the better side of 30. Of course, Stewart's on the other side, but he's in a position on the field where that isn't really that big of a problem. So these are all great signings for the future of the team and for Anthony Richardson, which again, everything in the NFL revolves around your quarterback. So everything for the Colts needs to revolve around Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen. And you know what? Even Gus Bradley. Gus Bradley had a win today too. So I excited about what's to come, but they've got some real big decisions out of the way, and now they can focus on the rest of the team and putting depth on those respective sides of the ball.
I agree. So that's our show for today, guys. Really, really appreciate everybody tuning in and talking about the first day of free agency for the Indianapolis Colts. Currently over 700 of you guys watching and joining us live here tonight. Just exceptional. Want to give a shout out to our super chats for the evening for Stormy Hellbrook and Patrick Rye. Thank you so much always for your support, and everybody else that joined us in the chat. Even if you can't super chat, we appreciate the hell out of every single one of you. And if you haven't done so, please go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night, or for special breaking news episodes, because they're bound to happen, especially at this time of the year. But if you can't catch us live, we're on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. And also don't forget to order your copy of the 2024 edition of the Indy Draft Guide. Like I said, over 225 write-ups on prospects, special features and interviews with every single prospect having their fit with the Indianapolis Colts defined for you. So make sure you go and order that. Use the code in the description, use the link in the description, and the code DRAFTMISS for $1 off. So make sure you go to that link, use the code, and pre-order your copy of the Indy Draft Guide today. Drake, I know you've been writing away on horseshoehuddle.com just like myself with all of these moves and getting prepared for free agency. Go tell the people what they need to check out.
So I did 7 free agent fits on the offensive positions, 5 free agent fits on the defensive positions, and then I did the news on Tyquan Lewis and Gardner Minshew. Need to update that with the contract numbers now that they have come out. But go check all 4 of those pieces out in the last 2 days. Me and Andrew, man, we've been sweating. We've been sweating, guys.
Yeah, it's been a busy day, and it's going to be more busy days to come. But that's why
right.
we love it. We love this job. So for myself, did a piece on the 5 backup quarterback options I thought suited the Indianapolis Colts best. One of those is already off the table in Gardner Minshew, but check out the other 4 that I talked about and why they would be good backups with the Indianapolis Colts. Also today, dove into the 2 extensions for Michael Pittman Jr. and Grover Stewart. Why the Colts went to the links they did to re-sign those guys, and what's to come for both of those guys in Indy. So make sure you check that out, as well as all the fantastic writings of all of our staff at horseshoehuddle.com. Go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL, and we'll be back Wednesday night, not Thursday night, guys, because Thursday night, hey, Baby Moore is getting close. So my wife and I, Danielle, have a childbirthing class that we have to attend to on Thursday night. So make sure you're here on Wednesday night. Hey, we might even be live back tomorrow night if something crazy happens that we need to do another show. But for sure, we'll be back on Wednesday night to talk more Colts football and free agency with you and keep you all up to date on everything happening at West 56th Street. So make sure you tune in, enjoy free agency, Colts fans, and remember, Super Bowls aren't won in March. We'll be seeing you soon.